In today's video, we're taking a look at some NHL trade rumors. Could the Maple Leafs have interest in Red Wings forward Tyler Bertuzzi? Could we see a trade between the Montreal Canadiens and the Washington Capitals, possibly involving forward Anthony Mantha? Plus, could there be more Canuck players besides guys like Besser and Horvat generate enough interest to see a trade here early in 2023? Plus, we have another NHL player who's announced his retirement, a bunch of injury updates, a signing as well, and more news from around the NHL. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover here today. As you can see, I'm using a different format here for today. So we're just going to try this out and experiment a little bit. Let me know some feedback. I think the quality of video and sound should be pretty good. I've already done some testing here. So certainly hope that the new format is appealing. I just thought I'd try something a little bit different because there were some updates available here just to do things a different way. I like to kind of change things up every once in a while. I just wanted to quickly announce as well. I know it might be a little late to get it to arrive in time before Christmas, but I'm announcing here on all Top Shelf Hockey merchandise that you see in the merch shelf here below the video here on YouTube. All of my hoodies, t-shirts. You can get everything 25% off here for the holidays with promo code Top Shelf 25. So TOPSHELF 25 for 25% off. Everything in the store, so you can get a nice hoodie like this in a variety of colors. You can get t-shirts, all kinds of other stuff in there as well. So if you want to support the channel, get yourself a great product. And I personally, I love my hoodies and stuff. If you like that too, especially for winter, might be a great time to take advantage of the sale. Of course, our channel members normally get 25% off usually anyway. So now we're extending that feature and advantage to everybody for the next 7 days. So if you order anything here between now and next week, then like I said, it will obviously likely won't arrive in time before Christmas, but still something great time of year to help support the channel. Now, to today's news, Andrew Hammond, longtime NHL goaltender, you can call him almost a little bit of a journeyman minor leaguer for the most part, has announced his retirement. But Andrew Hammond certainly had a heck of a career, heck of a run. He was an undrafted goalie at a Bowling Green University, mostly famous for his run with the Ottawa Senators back in 2015 when he went on an incredible run. In 23 games, he had a record of 20 wins, 1 loss, and 2 overtime losses. So they only lost once in regulation in 23 games. The end of the season, they get themselves into the playoffs. It was a remarkable time. He had goals against that run of 1.79. Of course, so that's when he gained the Hamburger. Well, the Hamburglar nickname had already followed him around, but it really exploded. At that point, I remember Curtis Lazar was first new to the NHL. And at one point, burgers were thrown onto the ice after a game, and Lazar picked one up and actually took a bite. It's one of the most funny moments I've ever seen in hockey history. But Hammond's 34. Recently, he's went over to the KHL. Has been having issues with an ankle injury and played a couple games and decided that he couldn't do it anymore, so he's done. So Hammond will now announce his retirement and go on to the next stage of his career. So certainly want to congratulate Andrew Hammond on having a long, successful career. Like I said, the odds were against him, being undrafted, spent a lot of time in the minors before he ever got the opportunity there in Ottawa. And, he made the most of it, made the best of it, and certainly, get a chance to make some good money and set his family up. And like I said, have a much longer career than a lot of people probably would have predicted. So congratulations, Hamburglar. Hope the next stage of retirement is good to you. Lots of news and notes from around the league. One of the things that was interesting is the Montreal Canadiens have announced that they're going to honor and bring home PK Subban. Of course, PK has recently announced his retirement as well, shortly before the beginning of the 22-23 NHL season. So on January the 12th, when the Habs are home to face the Nashville Predators, of course, the team that they traded him to in the Shea Weber deal, will be honoring PK. They're calling it like a homecoming. So be interesting to see how that works. I don't think this would have happened under the previous regime of Habs. It was Bergevin and company were still running the show. We know that PK left on not the greatest terms. There's a lot of stories I've heard about his time there, and it wasn't, he not that he didn't have friends or wasn't well liked, but there were certainly some people in the organization. I think it's fair to say that we're not fond of him and his big personality, and to some think that he wasn't the most mature at that point. Regardless of what is true and what isn't, we know that things didn't end the greatest there on the greatest terms. And I know when he originally first came back to play his first game in the Preds uniform, I know it was quite emotional for him. So interesting to see that they're trying to make amends here and kind of, make this relationship a little bit better and cherish the memories they had with him, because he was a very exciting player, especially young in his career. Say what you want about him as a person or his personality, or some people didn't like it, some people did, but he was a heck of a player there for a while, and certainly deserves to be acknowledged. So nice to see this nice move here from Habs management. A few other roster moves from around the league. The Bruins have demoted Craig Smith after he cleared waivers. So he's down to the AHL. They've got a lot of money down in the American Hockey League being buried. The Canucks, after their loss last night at home again to the Blues, have demoted Nils Höglander to the American Hockey League. I believe it's his birthday as well, so not a great birthday present for a young Höglander there. But the Canucks continue to struggle. It was quite a terrible game again last night for them. The Flames have activated Chris Tanev, so that's a welcome back addition. That'll be big for them on the blue line. Radim Zohorna gets sent back to the American Hockey League to make room. It's been discussed in the Maple Leafs to top defenseman Morgan Rielly. They've been playing well without him, but he is getting closer to returning. He's resumed skating and is getting closer. We don't know an exact date, but it's still a little ways away. But at least, the fact he's doing stuff on the ice is certainly very promising. Same goes for Jets forward Nick Ehlers. Ehlers and Rielly both likely to return sometime early in the new year. So that's welcome news for both of those teams. Luke Kunin of the San Jose Sharks is done for the year. He was injured, required ACL surgery, and he's looking at a 6 to 8 month recovery. So Kunin will not be playing anymore this season, and hopefully will be okay for training camp next year. This stage, I would say most likely will be. He should be good to go and fully recovered by middle of the summer to late summer sometime, depending on how his recovery goes on that front. It was reported on TSN Insider Trading by Chris Johnston that the Ottawa Senators and defenseman Artem Zub are intensifying their talks to get a new contract extension done for the very important defensively minded defenseman. We know that Zub was, we already knew he was good, important piece back there in the back end, stabilize things. But a couple times this year when he's been injured, you could really see and feel that his presence was missed. So not that they didn't know that he was important, but they really knew once that happened. So the fact that the talks are intensifying is good news. Johnson says he feels like things are getting close, but it's hard to pinpoint exactly when this is going to be finalized here, but certainly encouraging, considering at the beginning of the season that they weren't even talking. So it wasn't quite clear if this was going to get done or not. I think that the Sens certainly have interest to bring him back, just a matter. And I think there's lots of interest on his part too. He seems to be quite happy there. It's just a matter of getting the financial stuff sorted out. So we'll see. They're on TSN Insider Trading. They were speculating if maybe this could be done in time to be like almost like a Christmas present for Zub, which means there's some optimism it could be done in the next few days, but it could drag on until the new year as well. It's not a given that's going to get that far along that quickly. But on to some Canucks trade talk. We know that they've been by far the team most discussed in the rumor mill. Darren Dreger on TSN's Insider Trading talked about, obviously Bo Horvat and Brock Besser, and the fact that talks around both those players are expected to intensify and pick up early in the new year. Of course, as of late last night at midnight Eastern time, we now have a trade freeze, so we can't see any trades until after the holidays at this point. So, we're looking at this is going to drag into the first part of January for sure. So at that point, he expects things will really pick up around Horvat and Besser. But he also goes on to say that another Canuck player that is drawing a lot of attention that doesn't really get discussed a whole lot in the media, but he expects has a good chance of getting moved as well as defenseman Tyler Myers. Now, he also says that Myers would probably prefer to stay in Vancouver. He does have a modified no trade, so he can block some deals. But Dreger thinks that Myers is going to have a lot of interest. He's a big right shot defenseman, and there's a lot of teams apparently, according to him, that believe they could give him a fresh start and kind of rejuvenate him, so to speak. So we'll see if the Canucks action picks up and if, maybe Myers is one of the guys to go. If he doesn't, I would think that the odds of something maybe getting done in the summer will be greater because he'll be entering the final year of the deal. More cash to be paid out, and it might be easier for them to find a way. But certainly one of the contracts that Patrick Allvin and Jim Rutherford would like to move on from. Now, could the Montreal Canadiens and the Washington Capitals hook up on a potential trade? There's some talk from the Montreal Hockey Now website today suggesting that very much could be the case. We know that in Washington, they're getting close to getting some key people back, like Tom Wilson and Nick Backstrom. and they are likely going to have to make some kind of cost-cutting move, roster shredding move, so to speak, to create some space for those guys to return. And one of the names that's been mentioned in the rumor mill recently, in the last few weeks, that's come up a couple times, is Anthony Mantha. And now Mantha, according to Montreal Hockey Now, could be of interest to the Montreal Canadiens. Now, that's the Habs and the Capitals reportedly did have some trade discussions before, because we know the Capitals have had a ton of injury issues this year. So certainly that's, a problem, right? And Montreal has a surplus of veteran forwards that they've been looking to move. And obviously there were talks, nothing materialized, it never happened. But there was, whether it be Hoffman, Drew, Armia, to some degree, Dvorak, all of those guys at some point, had conversations as the Habs look to kind of, shed some money and some contracts and kind of get ready for the future here. And of course, big fact, they have Carey Price on LTIR. They would likely have to have a contract out of some sort, but they do have a big LTIR pool they can work with, and they might have some more flexibility than some teams in some regards, especially if they can move a player out either in this trade or in a separate trade and maybe bring Mantha in. Mantha might be the type to fit with them, where he's not super young, but he's not super old either. Mid to late 20s now. But Mantha's a guy that hasn't really fit with Washington. They traded him or picked him out for Verana from Detroit, and that deal has certainly had, not the greatest result on each side. I mean, Verana, for the most part, I'd say, has been the better player. We know Verana had to miss a bunch of time lately where he was involved in the player assistance program. That's a completely separate issue. But when he was on the ice with Detroit, especially early on, he's battled some injuries there too, but probably has been more productive. But they've both been players that have missed time for their clubs. And in Mantha's case, just hasn't produced enough, even though he has the ability in the past history to show he can be a 25 to 30 goal scoring winger. Got big size, big strong guy. So, could be a case of Montreal might be interested there, where they do have a lot of smaller players on that team. It might not be terrible to mix in a guy like that if they can make it work. But, obviously, in Mantha's case, I don't know if that's really the best fit, but there is some, thought that Montreal might be a landing spot for Mantha should Washington want to make that move. So we'll see. I have to keep an eye on these two teams here as these guys get closer to returning in the new year. That could be a deal that we might see as well. And we know that the Red Wings might be trading Tyler Bertuzzi. We've talked about that a few days ago. We've talked about what the Leafs want to do. They're linked to a lot of different guys. The Leafs obviously get a lot of attention from NHL insiders and a lot of heavy talk, but we have seen a consensus lately that a lot of them feel that right now the Leafs are focusing on adding on the left wing position. And Answer Khan of the Red Wings reporter from MLive.com reports that he believes that the Leafs do have interest in Bertuzzi, of course, who can play that position for them. An Ontario guy, played his junior hockey there, born and raised in Ontario, might be interesting for him. And the Leafs have been linked to Bertuzzi in the past. This is not the first time that Bertuzzi to the Leafs has popped up as a rumor, and now might make more sense than ever before for it to actually take place, considering where the Leafs are at, what they likely need going into the deadline, and the fact that Detroit might not be able to re-sign him for the right price and might look to move him. And of course, from Detroit's perspective as well, they have some time to figure out here. I know they probably have to continue fighting to see if they can become a playoff team as well. They're on the outside looking in, but they're still within striking distance if they can put together a good streak, especially. So it's not all given that he's going to be moved, but as time goes on and they don't have an extension and they're still out of it, it just increases the odds and certainly could be a good fit there. So it does make more sense for them to look at a guy like Bertuzzi than some of the other names that we've heard. Bertuzzi's only making $4.75 million. If they do a deal with Detroit, maybe Detroit eats some of that money, knocks the money down. They don't need to move out as much. Maybe Detroit picks up something for the future from Toronto that they find interesting. I don't know exactly what the asking price would be, but certainly I know a few prospects in the Leafs organization that teams like Detroit or others very well might find interesting. So we'll have to see where that goes. But Bertuzzi to the Leafs is not the first time we've heard it. But like I said, I think it makes more sense now than any time it's popped up as a rumor in the past. So we'll see where things go. But that is all your news and notes here for today. So let me know your thoughts on everything discussed down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, of course, make sure you subscribe. Stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.